Well, welcome to another Wednesday edition of virtually tasting this week's featured effing beer of the week. And we've got a great one this week. It's our award-winning Butch's Brew, which is a hazelnut brown ale. It's an English brown. It's got a big hazelnut character to it, and we're going to go over the recipe. We will do some tasting. I'm going to give you some history on brown ales, and then we'll open up for some questions. So, and as you join this in the midstream, we will archive this on our Facebook page, and we'll have it on YouTube channel, and so you can watch it again. So, Hazelnut Brown, Butch's Brew. It's a great session beer. It's 4.5% alcohol by volume, so it's one that you can have. You're going to want to have more than one pint, and that's great that it's at that level of alcohol. It's got 28 IBUs. It's not about bitterness. The IBUs are there to take some of that sweetness away, so it has a nice dry finish to it. 1017 terminal gravity, so there's a nice amount of sweetness left in there. We don't let it finish too dry. 1051 original gravity. Color is 19.7, so it's got some nice color to it. It's got some nice deep brown tones to it, maybe a little bit of red to it when you get the light to it. And we did a half barrel batch on this, 15.5 gallons. London water, and we used the White Lab 002, which is the Fuller's yeast strain. For our malts, our base malt is Crisp Maris Otter, which is our base malt. It's 17 pounds, or 53% of the malt bill. We also have Alex Two-Row, which comes from Alberta, Canada. We have 8.5 pounds, 27% of the malt bill. We've got 1 pound of crisp brown malt, and it's 3% of the malt bill. We have 1.5 pounds of crisp chocolate. We have half a pound of crisp chocolate, which gives 1.5%. And then we have 2.5 pounds of both flaked oats and flaked wheat. And combined, that gives us 16% of the malt bill. So that's going to give us some, such a lower alcohol beer like that. We want to have a bigger mouthfeel, bigger chewiness to it. It's in our mouth. So that's why we have all the flaked malt, wheat, and oats in it. Hops, we've got 2 additions. At the 60-minute interval, we had Northern Brewer, 2 ounces, were 28 IBUs, and at Flame Out, we put in 2 ounces of UK Goldings. It gives us no IBUs. Now we do bash this in at 148 degrees. It's on a we want to make sure we had a clean fermentation on this beer, and so we do it at 148. It's going to be smaller chain sugars, so it'll be easier to ferment, but we also make sure it doesn't get too low and too dry out there. And so that 148, and then we sparge it with 170 degree water to make sure we strip all the sugars off the corn, the grain husks. It ferments for 1 week. We pitch it at 65, let it rise to 68, and it goes to secondary for another 7 days at 32 degrees to give it clarity. And the result is this beautiful beer right here. It's got great color to it. It's got a nice white head on it to match the nice handsome brown with reddish hues in it. The aroma on this thing is just all about the nuts. We get some of that bready character to it, but the nuts dominate, that hazelnut. Oh, I forgot to tell you about the nuts. So, in here is 1 pound of freshly roasted hazelnuts. So we take unsalted, just natural nuts, just plain nuts, and we cut them into halves, and we put it in the oven at 275 degrees for 45 minutes. We want to lightly brown it. We want to bring out all those tones. And so once we mash in all our grains into our 148 degrees, then we take our nuts and we lay it on top, and we just stir them so they're in about in the top inch of the, because we want to do it when we're sparging, we want to filter all the nut oils through the grains. We really don't want those nut oils to come through. We want the nut flavor to come through, and it does really well that way. So that's the key thing about the nuts. So 1 pound of freshly roasted. So it's best if you do it either the day of or the day before, but don't do it too far ahead of time, because you're gonna lose some of that impact on that flavor those nuts have, and they're delicious. Now it's time to taste it, because we can taste that nut, smell the nuts. It's delicious. So you get that. You get a little bit of sweetness of that dark malt, and so you got some of the almost be like a oat bran kind of a flavor when you have a fresh bran muffin coming out of the oven, and then you've got that nut. So if you chopped up a bunch of hazelnuts and put it into your bran, might get some of that flavor on it. But you know, those dark brown, the brown malt and chocolate malt gives you some of that richness on it. It's got a good mouthfeel to it. I think it's that oats and the wheat that are in there that gives you that nice mouthfeel on it. But it's all about those nuts. It's got a big nut character to it, big nut flavor. If you're a hazelnut fan, you're going to love this beer. Maybe just a little bit of coffee tones, but that's not really a dominant flavor at all. Finish is slightly sweet, but it's got a nice dry finish to it. It's just delicious. I'm drinking this at 40 degrees, and it's colder than 40 degrees where I'm drinking it, so it's not warming up at all. So we force carbonates to 1.5 volumes, which is a British carbonation level. We've done it on cask before. It's an excellent cask beer. And we've done it on nitro before. It's another wonderful beer on nitro. But on CO2, it's delicious. It's got great body to it. It's very fulfilling. Growler of this 64 ounces is 4 16-ounce pints. I'm drinking out of a 20-ounce English Imperial pint, proper pint. So you're going to get not quite 4 of those out of your growler, but easily one person with a 4.5% could drink that in the course of a day. And it's best to drink a growler the same day that's opened up. It just stays better. So if you can't share it with somebody for a couple of pints each, it's better to get a lower alcohol one where you can drink it all yourself. It's not like it's bad beer the next day, it's just not as good as it was that first day you tried it. So a little bit about the history on the brown ales, and then we'll get some Q&A up here. The style of beer that finally became known as the brown ale can be traced back to the early 1700s in England. And it had existed in England for several centuries, but the output was mostly from home or for local consumption and varied quite widely. By the 1720s, there were dark beers being brewed in London that were called porters. Porter rapidly became extremely popular, and many English brewers produced them. There was, however, a great deal of variation between them. Stouts were brewed with great variation, and many differed little from porters, depending on the brewer. So it was really hard to tell stouts and porters from each other. Usage of the term brown ale or brown beer came around 1740, and it was used to describe these porters and stouts rather than a specific style of its own. The invention of a drum malt roaster in 1817 by Daniel Wheeler changed brewing. Black patent malt was produced for the first time and was rapidly adopted by brewers of porters and stouts. This distinction made beers brewed with this new black malt and those being brewed with black beer or a brown beer. It was around this time that the pale ale came about, and in 1850 it eclipsed the porter, and stout is a favorite beer of England. Brown slipped into obscurity, and by the beginning of the 20th century, it all but disappeared. In 1927, brown ale came back from the brink of extinction when Newcastle brewers of Scotland brought out the bottled version of their now world-famous Newcastle Brown. I'm sure everybody's seen a Newcastle Brown or had one. Newcastle Brown was known it probably bears little resemblance to its ancestors, and it established a new brown ale name and set the foundation for similar products of today. Its intent was primarily developed to a product for bottled beer trade rather than to resurrect brown ales as such, but they were widely successful in both areas. Newcastle Browns become, if not the most widely sold beer in the UK, is popular in the USA and other countries as well. Now, other British brewers now make brown ales in distinct styles. Northern or London, northern brown ales characterized by Newcastle are in the lighter range of brown to deep color and lightly hopped, lightly carbonated, and carry a profile of slight caramel malty sweetness. These are sometimes called nut brown ales, but they don't normally use nuts in their beer. London brown ales are usually darker in color than the northern cousins, deep amber to very dark brown. They tend to be more fruity in flavor and deep in malty sweetness. Full-bodied, low carbonation, even lower hop rates than the northern. London browns have found a place of their own. And I would say this is a London brown because this is rich, big, bold, lots of flavor, and the addition of that hazelnut just adds that great character. In 2018, we won the silver medal for brown ale. Very proud of that. This beer, we don't enter a lot of competitions, but this beer has gotten a number of awards, and it's probably our most awarded beer we've got. So it's available this weekend in growlers, 64-ounce growlers for $16, and you can get all your details and placing your orders for Friday or Saturday curbside pickup, 4 to 5 p.m. at foggynogginbrewing.com, and hit the beer tab. All the details are there. And if they're not there, they'll be up there either tonight or tomorrow morning. So sometimes we're running a little bit late, but let's get this moved a little closer to me so we can take a look at the questions coming through. Well, first we got Mark is watching. Welcome, Mark. We have Jeff watching. We have Kim, and we have Stephanie, Kevin, Susan, and Roxanne. I don't have any questions at this point in time, but if you have any, please raise them. This is a delicious beer. If you've not had a brown ale, I think you're going to really love this one. If you like nuts, this is a guaranteed slam dunk that you're going to love this beer. Curious if anyone's got another brown ale that they is a go-to brown for them, or if they are new to the whole brown category and they're looking forward to trying this weekend. We've been brewing this beer for a long time. I think our first batch might have come in the fall of 2010. So it was a big hit the first time we did it, and we haven't changed it at all. And we get our hazelnuts from Oregon Orchard in Cornelius, Oregon. They do a great job of growing hazelnuts, and they package it really well, and very, very happy with their products. So hats off to Oregon Orchard, and they have a great website. You can order their hazelnuts, all kinds of flavors, dry, roasted. You can get them the whole natural like we get them. You can get them chocolate dipped. You can get them all kinds of ways, and they're wonderful people too. So Butch's Brew, Hazelnut Brown. Now you could look at that color a little bit better as I get that closer to the camera. And it's hard to see that through, but you can see, when I look through and see the light, I see a little bit of reddish tones, and you're probably going to have some trouble seeing that. But it's a wonderful beer, and we talk about this. It's all we've got the British Maris Otter as our base malt, 53% of the malt bill. We have some Canadian two-row for 27%. Then we've got some crisp brown malt for 3%, crisp chocolate malt for 1.5%, and then I think a key ingredient in this is that we use 2.5 pounds each of both flaked wheat and flaked oats, which gives us a combined 16% of the malt bill in those flaked wheat and flaked oat. It's going to give you a mouthfeel. It's going to give you a bigger chewiness factor to it, and for a 4.5% alcohol beer, it doesn't have it's not a watered down feeling. It's not a thin beer. It's got great body to it to match that flavor profile. 2 hop additions in this beer. 60 minutes we have Northern Brewer 28 IBUs from 2 ounces, and then Flame Out 2 ounces of UK Goldings. There's no hop aroma on it at all. The hops are just to take the sweetness out, and it's to add so it's not cloyingly sweet, and brings out the richness of the malty character. Those I taste like a bran muffin kind of taste, and those hazelnuts that are freshly roasted the day that you make that beer. Welcome John and welcome Scott for joining us. And this is just I love brown ales, but when I go and get a brown ale, a lot of times I'm disappointed because I feel like they're thin, they're lacking character, they're lacking body, and this is not lacking anything. This is a very fulfilling, very wonderful, rich, delicious beer. Not overly sweet, but it's very satisfying. I could see this going with a lot of foods. I think it would go great with pizza, anything you would put on the grill. Anything gets a little char to it would be really good with it. I like this with anything with a gravy on it, so it's really a good Thanksgiving beer. It goes well with turkey and gravy, but it would go good with like your pot roast. It would also go great with a lot of different cheeses, and I think the cheeses would go well, or be like, those hard, dry cheeses that have that more pungent flavor. And I think that the combination of the sweet bran flavor and the hazelnuts would go well with those kind of cheeses. So, Butch's Brew, Hazelnut Brown, 4.5% alcohol, 28 IBUs. This week's featured effing beer. It's available for growler fills this weekend, Friday and Saturday, 4 to 5 p.m. Get all the details at foggynogginbrewing.com. Hit the beer tab, and you can place your orders there. And $16 for a growler fill of this. It's a great deal. And with the weather that's coming up, Saturday may be a difficult day for people to get to pick it up. So I would count on picking my beer up on Friday's curbside 4 to 5. So you don't have to worry about getting out in the maybe slick roads Saturday if it does snow like they're talking about. So tomorrow, you guys join us for 5:30 for the happy half hour. It's the happiest half hour of the week. You get a little music, piano, some singing, some humor, and just a great old time. That's tomorrow on Facebook Live, 5:30, and then we'll see you guys this weekend for curbside pickup. And this will be recorded, so you can watch it again on our Facebook Facebook page or on our YouTube channel. Cheers, everyone. Stay safe.